is our second episode of League of Legends Competitive Edge here in 2024. As usual, guys, thanks to Esportsbet. Remember to subscribe here for both Competitive Edge for League of Legends and for Counter-Strike and for lovely other ESB content, of course. We're going to start the episode, as we typically do once we have bets to review, to take a look at how we did last week. It was basically a wash, guys. We effectively broke even. I think we were up like 4 USDT in total. We did take some underdogs, as you guys can see here. We did take LNG in the upset, which could have been actually huge, Thorin, because they were at 3.6 odds, which is absolutely ridiculous that they would be such huge underdogs with JDG. Yeah, I would take it again tomorrow. It was a 2-1 series. You know, if anything, Thorin, I think we should have learned our lesson, that we should have at least bet that it wasn't going to be a 2-0 for JDG, because probably should have picked LNG to at least win one game in that series, because it seemed very unlikely that it would be a 2-0 in any case. We also selected the D+ versus Hanwha Life upset. That was with D+, again, as a 2.3 underdog. Didn't turn out too well. It was a 2-0 for Hanwha Life. But we had some good successes.
Some of the insight. They actually drafted right for once to square our bet, then went right back to all the usual nonsense, which is why we bet against them in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Thanks Hanwha.
We successfully predicted the FlyQuest win over Cloud9, which looks amazing in retrospect.
The odds were way too high for that, mate. The odds were way too high for that. Come on.
It was 2.8.
It's bonkers, isn't it?
It's outrageous. Absolutely outrageous. Absolutely outrageous. We also predicted the Shopify win over NRG at 3.2. So we picked a lot of underdogs this week.
Yes.
We tried to pick the Shopify win over Dignitas. Of course, they had to win the harder game, not the easy one versus Dignitas. And then finally, BDS was the favorite that we selected, and they did end up taking down Team Heretics. So overall, guys, we were, like I said, about 4 USDT up. So no losses on the week and a very mild win. Sad that some of those other upsets couldn't go our way, but that's what happens when you pick a lot of the underdogs. You can win big, but we were a little bit more conservative. So coming into this week, obviously, by the time this comes out, there are going to be no more LPL or LCK games for you to predict. Everybody is on vacation for that Lunar New Year. And speaking of that Lunar New Year, there is a special promotion for you guys, just so you are aware of it, which is, you can see right here on the promotions tab on the site, the Chinese New Year Red Envelope Frenzy. What this means is you can get, it's for anybody, first-time depositor or not, if you've been using the site for a long time. If you use the promotion and you deposit $100 USDT, you will receive an extra $100 USDT, 100,000 esports coins to use on the site to place predictions for free. And you can, as you get more of those, you can transfer them into forms of other cryptocurrency. And you get one risk-free bonus quota on any LoL Spring Tier 1 game. Obviously, that's a game in a major region. Up to $50 USDT. So it's a risk-free bet up to $50 USDT. You will have to contact their customer support to apply the bonus. So click that button there, talk to customer support. They will walk you through that process. But on to our odds for this week, Thorin. We can start with the LEC games, because the closest one in terms of odds is actually Heretics versus SK. SK, a mild underdog at 1.888 to Heretics 1.784. Now, you picked Heretics last week on SI, making many sensible and compelling arguments why this group of veterans should be better in a best-of scenario in the playoffs when the time, when push comes to shove, and yet they fell to BDS, who are not, to be fair, rookies themselves, right? Now they've, a lot of these players have had some time under their belts. They've been in an LEC final. So perhaps they were not going to be spooked in that same situation.
Well, luckily, they're not playing BDS. They're playing SK Gaming, and SK Gaming has actually shown themselves to have way more flaws than BDS does. The joke of BDS is I was sort of betting on them to fall off. They haven't. If anything, they looked even better. So I actually think if you look at SK has been falling off. SK has been shaky, much like Heretics ever since those first couple of weeks. They've had those big moments that give you the hope and think it's going to go awesome, but then they also have the ones where you just have a game where XKick doesn't go off, or Niski just dies a bunch of times, or Irrelevant even had a couple of screamers towards the end. Even he had some nightmares. I thought he was the most consistent player. So the key thing here is there's enough question marks on SK that I can just dive even more deeply into my bias, even though I don't even believe in Herex quite as much. At the same time, though, this is the one where they're going to win me back over with this one, and then the next one I'm going to go really hard, and I'm going to pipe warm. So I'm tempering it. But yeah, here's the thing, mate. When you've got Wonder, Yankos, and Perks, right? You're not going to just get swept out of all the series, mate. You're going to win some games. And I think in this one, I actually think this is quite an interesting matchup, even like different players you can play through. Actually, it'll be very interesting to see what like the bot lane drafts will be. I think it's very interesting what Rex is going to do to try and utilize. But I think basically the key thing is, I think SK themselves are really streaky. So I think this actually could be a banger series. It could be a mess, could be a banger.
SK also looked like they got kind of rocked by some of the weird picks versus Vitality. And it's not like Vitality is a team that has been doing very well in the macro and the mid and late game. I mean, Hylissang has been very bad. I mean, we're in one of the fallow Hylissang periods, it feels like. And you really got to see that in their matchup versus BDS. So remember that we've seen Vitality play SK, and now we've seen them play BDS. So we've kind of gotten a sense of both teams' strength relative to their opponents because they were on the same side of the bracket. So I don't know. You're tempting me with this Heretics one, Thorin. You really are.
Yeah, but if you're on your SK side, if you want the SK side, the odds are there. I think the odds are there for both of us on this one. By the way, I do also think it's a bit of a trap game, but we're going to bet this one. I'm betting Heretics, so let's do it. You want to take SK?
All right, I'll take SK. Yeah. We will put our official prediction right now in for you, Thorin. So we'll go with the Heretics. We're also now more comfortable as we head into getting into the swing of things again here on Esportsbet. So we're going to start betting in units of 1,000 USDT. And so we'll pop that one up for Heretics. And that'll be the official comp edge bet. I'll still pull for SK for the purposes of Summoning Insight, though. Because we're having to go deep into LCS and LEC this week. The other LCS match or LEC match that is juicy is G2 versus BDS. And not because we think BDS is going to win, but because BDS's odds are over 3.
Oh, we're priced in. We're priced in.
So I think this is just one of those situations.
Like, look, there's obviously a world, Monty, where the pressure gets to them, or the G2 players, like someone like Caps goes crazy. But even so, just the games you've seen in LEC so far, you have to take 3+ odds. Come on. You have to do at least a baby bet for that one, I feel like.
Yeah, it's...
Doesn't your eyes just tell you, like, believe your eyes, mate. They've looked good. They really do look good.
Yeah, they have looked good. Good. I don't think they have the talent to actually win this matchup, but purely as an exercise, this is also a best of 5, which makes it...
Yes.
It does make it a little bit harder, to make this prediction.
Certainly.
So we could do something like go for G2 minus 1.5, which implies that BDS, this is going to be like a,
win a game.
3. Yeah. Like that we would actually get a game out.
But for that,
1.651 for G2.
That feels pretty likely it'll happen, though. I feel like they'll drop one game at least. I mean, they also can't be trusted. They'll definitely lose the game, it feels like, right?
That's the thing, is that they always do. And, that prediction is basically either a G2 3-1 or 3-0. So
By the way, here's the other angle as well. I also feel like the reason why you're almost guaranteed a weird game in the G2 series is if they go up 2-0, they're going to get cocky with the draft on the third game. Like, this is who these players are. Like, Caps is going to ask for some stupid
pick. They always lose one, man.
KX is going to do some outrageous support pick. Like, yeah, of course. Exactly. So I feel like losing the game's pretty good. I like those.
They always lose one. All right. So you want to do that instead of taking the BDS flyer?
Yeah, do it then. Well, then. I'll probably individually take the BDS flyer, but do the series one for this one. Yeah. Do the series one.
All right.
The handicap.
We'll take 500 on G2 minus 1.5. So let's move on to our next one, and we'll get into LCS now. LCS, the LCS odds are still all over the place, and part of that is just there's been a lot of there haven't been that many LCS games played. Remember, we're still in the first.
They're a week
We will
behind
be
LEC,
finishing.
right?
Yeah, we just finished the first round robin of competition this week, and it's fewer games because there's only 8 teams in the league, and there's been actually quite a bit of parity, partially because Cloud9 is underperforming, but partially, honestly, because some of the bottom of the table teams, particularly Immortals, are starting to look better and better, and so that leaves us with some very interesting odds, such as Cloud9 being a slight favorite against NRG, but not by any means an overwhelming favorite. And Cloud9 on this 4-match losing streak feels quite bad in the way that they're drafting and kind of the cavalier and cocky way that they're playing the game. Whereas NRG, they still are, while they may not have the individual capabilities, they're still displaying a lot of that teamwork that we saw last year.
Oh, sure. Yes. Yes. They're definitely one of the better teams. I like the NRG side of that. Let's do it.
Yeah, I think we can go ahead and take the energy. We're going to continue to go for the downfall of Cloud9. Worked out very well for Degon when he actually predicted with like 5 odds that Immortals would beat Cloud9 last week on Power Spike. So that was an extremely good call. And we'll go ahead and take the energy as slight underdogs for 1,000 here. So 1 unit onto this one. And I think it just kind of speaks to itself at the moment without a lot of other explanation. Now, one thing I did try last week, Thorin, was to get really good value out of Shopify Rebellion. And we did do that. If you guys remember the top of the show, we talked about how Shopify did actually end up getting the most important upset of the week over NRG, but they fell behind in some of the other games that you would think would have been more likely for them to win, like versus Dignitas. And we are coming back this week with Shopify Rebellion heading up against Team Liquid, right? And this matchup is at 1.453 right now to 2.487 for Shopify Rebellion. Now, Team Liquid, to be fair, has been a very good macro team and has been very good at reading win conditions of their opponents. It's how they got the victory over Cloud9. They're actually just not even trying to outskill people these days. They're going back to, of course, Udyr with Impact in the top lane, just kind of like hammering that over and over and over at this point in time. And also, when they can actually run the Ziggs on APA on champions that he does look better. So do you believe that Shopify in all of their janky glory can overcome what might be the best macro team in the LCS with Team Liquid?
The problem there is if they were the best macro team and a bunch of their players like stand out, then I'd say, yeah, it's over. But like, I actually think this is exactly an example of where, like, unless they're going to play super clean, it's going to be a chance for Shopify Rebellion in this one. Like, but already immediately, Monty, I'm just wondering what the fuck is the mid lane matchup going to be? That alone's like, immediately you might put a banana peel in there. Who the fuck knows? Like, if Insanity does one of those wild picks, mate, this could get really spicy. So I actually feel like those odds price you in for the Shopify side. It's worth a little cheeky wager, right, on the side, little flyer.
That's how I feel about this too. Like, it's just too good. Like, the odds are just too good, and Team Liquid still doesn't have necessarily the individual ability that we've seen from some of the other teams. Like, they still are struggling at the mid and AD carry positions in a lot of cases.
Sure.
So it feels to me that this is why I keep going back to Shopify. Even though Liquid can probably read some of their weird compositions, they still have their own flaws when it comes to actually dealing with some of the skill positions on other teams. So we'll do a little bit on this one. We'll do half a unit on the underdog, so 500 over to Shopify Rebellion. Now, the other one that I thought was quite curious, Thorin, this week that I want to get to is the Immortals versus Dignitas game, which is basically just dead even. It's Dignitas 1.811 and Immortals 1.858. So this is like as close to a coin flip as you're going to get. The difference is that Immortals has felt much more like a complete team in the last week of competition, particularly with their upset over Cloud9, than Dignitas has. And I think Dignitas has perhaps exceeded expectations, but Immortals, the rumblings are all about Immortals' fantastic scrim results and how well they're doing, and how all the teams actually want to practice against Immortals, and how Mask and Castle are doing very well on this roster. And, they looked solid. They actually looked legitimately solid in a way this last week.
Guy looked good in that last game I was on. Yeah, he was actually I was surprised how good he was. Yeah. Whereas Dignitas actually, I think their roster's so underwhelming, mate. I don't believe in that. I think for real, they can be the last team in this league.
Yeah, well, that wouldn't be surprising. So in this case, while the odds are relatively even, I feel like Immortals is not a big favorite, but just a slight favorite here. And I think that kind of justifies, putting some money onto Immortals here. So let's pull that up. And we'll do another 1,000 here onto Immortals. So a full unit, trying to get that value. Dignitas did pull off the win over Shopify, but at least Shopify was the underdog in that situation. I'll see if Immortals can actually continue the kind of strong streak that they've had so far, because it really doesn't feel like Immortals will be the last team in this league at this point in time. It could be Shopify because they're weird and they don't play a standard meta. But I agree with you. It's feeling more and more like Dignitas is kind of descending into the depths and is on the way down as opposed to Immortals, who feel like they're rising through the rankings. All right, guys. Well, those are our predictions. Again, trying to give you some good insight and odds when it comes to LCS and LEC, and pick the matches where it feels like you can actually get some good value. Not a lot of matches to pick from this week, guys, with two of the major leagues not here, especially the leagues who have far more games to play in them. But we'll be back next week again with more Western selections and Korean, because Korea will be back the next week. So next week will all be about LEC and LCK, as LCS and LPL will still be on break. And then finally, we'll be back in 4 regional play after that. So we'll see you next week. Remember to subscribe. Thank you very much.